The stagecoach lurched to a violent stop in front of the dusty trading post, and Olivia Palmer's heart hammered so hard against her ribcage she thought it might burst through the layers of her traveling dress and corset. She had traveled all the way from Philadelphia to Calistoga, California, a journey that had taken weeks of rattling wheels, stale bread, and sleepless nights wondering if she had made the most foolish decision of her 22 years. The advertisement had seemed straightforward enough when she had answered it 3 months prior. Rancher seeking companionship and partnership. Woman of good character and strong constitution preferred. Marriage intended. The words had been simple, lacking the flowery promises some men included in their notices, but something about the directness had appealed to her. She had been living with her sister's family after their parents passed, and though they never said it outright, she knew she was a burden. Another mouth to feed, another body taking up space in their already cramped Philadelphia boarding house. Now, stepping down from the coach with shaking legs, Olivia wondered if poverty and dependence might have been preferable to whatever awaited her here. The California heat struck her like a physical blow, so different from the humid summers back east. Everything seemed harsher here, brighter, more exposed. The sun beat down mercilessly on the dirt road that served as the town's main street, and the mountains in the distance looked jagged and unforgiving. "You the mail-order bride," a gruff voice called out, and Olivia turned to see a weathered man with suspicious eyes looking her up and down. "Vincent Keller's woman," the casual way he said it, as though she were a package being delivered rather than a person, made her stomach turn. But she nodded, clutching her single carpet bag tighter. Everything she owned in the world fit into that one bag, a fact that would have mortified her mother had she lived to see it. "He will be coming into town shortly," the man continued, spitting tobacco juice into the dirt. "You can wait over at the general store. Sarah Winters runs it. She will give you some water." Olivia managed a weak thank you and made her way across the rutted street, her boots already covered in dust. The general store was a weathered building that leaned slightly to one side, but when she pushed open the door, a welcome coolness greeted her. A woman in her 40s looked up from behind the counter, her face breaking into a warm smile that was the first genuinely kind expression Olivia had seen since arriving. "You must be Miss Palmer," the woman said, coming around the counter with surprising energy. "I am Sarah Winters. Let me get you some water. You look about ready to faint from this heat." "Thank you," Olivia managed, grateful beyond words. Sarah brought her a tin cup filled with cool water, and Olivia drank deeply, not caring about the lack of elegance in her gulping. "Vincent Keller is a good man," Sarah said, studying Olivia with eyes that missed nothing. "I know this must all seem terrifying, coming out here to marry a stranger, but he treats his ranch hands fair, pays his debts on time, and I have never heard a bad word about his character." "What does he look like?" Olivia asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. They had exchanged letters, but he had never sent a photograph, and she had been too nervous to send one of herself. Sarah's smile widened. "Tall, strong, got dark hair and eyes that notice everything. He is maybe 28 or 29 now, if my memory serves. Lost his parents to fever about 5 years back and has been running the ranch alone ever since. It is a beautiful spread, about 8 miles north of here. He raises cattle and horses, does well for himself." The description should have been reassuring, but Olivia felt her anxiety mounting. A successful rancher, older than her by several years, undoubtedly expecting a capable frontier woman rather than a city girl who had never ridden a horse or cooked over an open fire. Her sister had taught her basic cooking and sewing, but nothing that would prepare her for life on a ranch. "I can see that mind of yours spinning," Sarah said gently, placing a warm hand over Olivia's cold one. Give yourself time. Give him time. It will work out. Before Olivia could respond, the sound of hoofbeats and wagon wheels drew their attention. Sarah moved to the window and nodded. That will be him now. Olivia's vision began to tunnel. Her corset suddenly felt impossibly tight, crushing her ribs, making each breath a struggle. She stood on trembling legs, the tin cup slipping from her fingers and clattering on the wooden floor. Through the dusty window, she could see a wagon pulling up, and a man was climbing down from the driver's seat. He was indeed tall, with broad shoulders that spoke of years of hard labor, and even from this distance, she could see the confidence in his movements. This was real. This was actually happening. She was going to meet the stranger she had agreed to marry, and her entire future depended on the next few minutes. What if he took one look at her and changed his mind? What if she disappointed him? What if he was cruel despite Sarah's reassurances? Stories of women who had traveled west to find themselves trapped in nightmarish situations flooded her mind. Tales her sister had told her to try to dissuade her from making this journey. The door opened, and sunlight streamed in, silhouetting the man's frame. Olivia tried to focus on his face, to see if there was kindness there, but her vision was swimming now. The room tilted sideways, her knees buckled, and she felt herself falling. Strong arms caught her before she hit the ground, and she found herself looking up into dark brown eyes filled with concern rather than anger. The face above her was handsome in a rugged way, with strong features weathered by sun and wind, and there was gentleness in his expression that somehow made everything worse. She did not deserve gentleness. She was a fraud, a city girl play-acting at being a frontier woman. "I am sorry," she gasped, trying to pull away to stand on her own, but her legs refused to cooperate. "I am so sorry. I do not know what happened. I just felt so dizzy and I could not breathe and—" "Hush," he said, his voice low and calming, the kind of voice one might use with a spooked horse. "You are all right. I have got you." He lifted her effortlessly and carried her to a chair near the counter. Sarah was already bringing more water and a damp cloth, which she pressed to Olivia's forehead. The coolness helped, and gradually the room stopped spinning. "That corset is too tight," Sarah said with disapproval. "Especially in this heat. We need to get her somewhere she can loosen it." "My wagon is just outside," the man said. Vincent Keller, her intended husband, the man whose name she had signed to marriage papers she had never actually seen. "My ranch is not far. She can rest there, get out of this heat." "I am fine," Olivia protested weakly, though she clearly was not. "I do not want to be any trouble." Vincent knelt down so he was at eye level with her, and she was struck again by those steady brown eyes. "You are not trouble, Miss Palmer. This heat takes getting used to, and you have had a long journey. Let me take you home, get you settled. Everything else can wait." The word home echoed in her mind. Home, a place she had not really had since her parents died. Could this strange land become home? Could this man become family? "All right," she whispered, and saw something like relief cross his features. He helped her to her feet, keeping one strong arm around her waist to steady her, and guided her outside to the wagon. It was well maintained, the wood recently oiled, the horses healthy-looking and calm. He lifted her onto the seat with the same easy strength he had shown earlier, then climbed up beside her. "Thank you, Sarah," he called to the storekeeper, who stood in the doorway watching with approval. "You take care of her, Vincent Keller," Sarah called back. "And Miss Palmer, you come visit me soon. We women need to stick together out here." Vincent snapped the reins gently and the horses started forward. They rode in silence for several minutes, leaving the small cluster of buildings that made up Calistoga behind. The landscape opened up around them, golden grass rolling toward distant mountains, oak trees providing occasional patches of shade. It was beautiful in a stark, unforgiving way that was nothing like the green abundance of Pennsylvania. "I should not have fainted," Olivia said finally, unable to bear the silence. "You must think I am terribly weak." "I think you are brave," Vincent replied, keeping his eyes on the road ahead. "Coming all this way to marry a man you have never met, that takes courage." "Or desperation," she said before she could stop herself. He turned to look at her then, one eyebrow raised. Was it desperation? Olivia considered lying, but something about his directness demanded honesty in return. "Partly," she admitted. "I was living with my sister and her husband after our parents passed. They never said I was unwanted, but I could see the strain, and I wanted something more than just being the spinster aunt helping raise other people's children." Vincent nodded slowly. "That is honest." "I appreciate that. What about you?" she asked, emboldened by his acceptance of her truthfulness. "Why advertise for a bride instead of courting someone here?" A shadow crossed his face. "There are not many unmarried women in Calistoga, and the few there are have known me since I was a boy. It seemed easier to start fresh with someone new, someone who did not have preconceived notions about who I am or who I should be." There was pain in those words, Olivia realized. Some story he was not telling, but she did not push. They were both entitled to their secrets, at least for now. The ranch came into view after about an hour's drive, and despite her nervousness, Olivia could not help but admire it. The house was a sturdy two-story structure with a wide porch, built from timber and stone that looked like it could weather any storm. Behind it stretched a series of corrals and outbuildings, and in the distant pastures she could see cattle grazing. It was clearly a successful operation, well-maintained and prosperous. "It is beautiful," she said softly. Vincent's face brightened with unmistakable pride. "My father started it with nothing but determination and a land grant. I have been trying to honor his work, build on what he created." He pulled the wagon up in front of the house and came around to help her down. This time, Olivia's legs held steady, though she was grateful for his steadying hand anyway. A man emerged from the barn, middle-aged and weathered, with a friendly face. "This is Miguel Rodriguez," Vincent said. "He has been working this ranch since my father's time." "Miguel, this is Miss Olivia Palmer." "Pleased to meet you, miss," Miguel said with a tip of his hat. "Welcome to the Keller Ranch." "Thank you," Olivia replied, liking him immediately. Vincent led her into the house, and she was surprised by how clean and orderly everything was. She had expected bachelor chaos, but the main room was neat, with well-made furniture and curtains on the windows. There was even a vase on the table, though it currently held dried flowers that had probably been there for months. "I know it is not fancy," Vincent said, sounding almost apologetic. "But it is solid. The bedroom upstairs is yours. I will take the spare room down here until after the wedding." Olivia turned to him in surprise. "You are not expecting me to share your bed right away?" His eyes widened slightly. "Of course not. We are not married yet, Miss Palmer. The reverend in town can perform the ceremony whenever you are ready. A week from now, a month from now. I will not rush you into anything." The relief that flooded through her was so intense she felt tears pricking at her eyes. She had heard stories of men who considered mail-order brides their property the moment they arrived, who did not wait for ceremonies or consent. The fact that Vincent was offering her time, offering her choice, meant more than she could express. "Thank you," she managed. "That is very kind." "It is basic decency," he corrected gently. "Now, let me show you your room, and then I imagine you would like to wash up. There is a pump in the kitchen, and I can heat some water if you would like a bath." The room upstairs was simple but comfortable, with a real bed covered in a handmade quilt, a dresser, and a window that looked out over the ranch. Olivia set down her carpetbag and sank onto the bed, the exhaustion of the journey finally catching up with her. Vincent lingered in the doorway. "I will be downstairs if you need anything. Take your time getting settled." After he left, Olivia removed her traveling jacket and loosened her corset, breathing deeply for what felt like the first time in hours. She went to the window and looked out at this land that was supposed to become her home. It was so different from everything she had known, so vast and wild and challenging. But maybe that was what she needed. Maybe here she could become someone new, someone stronger than the grieving girl who had hidden in her sister's shadow. A knock on the door frame made her turn. Vincent stood there with a basin of warm water and clean towels. "I thought you might like this," he said. "Dinner will be ready in about an hour. Nothing fancy, just stew, but it is filling." "You cook?" she asked, surprised. A hint of a smile crossed his face. "When you live alone, you learn or you starve. Though I warn you, my cooking is basic at best." "I was hoping you might know your way around a kitchen." "I can cook," Olivia said, relieved to have at least one skill that might prove useful. "My sister taught me. Nothing elaborate but good, solid meals." "That is all anyone needs out here," Vincent said. "Well, I will let you rest." He turned to go, but Olivia called after him. "Vincent!" He paused, and she saw something in his eyes when she used his given name, something warm. "Earlier, when I fainted," she said, the words coming slowly, "you said something. You said I was all right, that you had me. I remember." "Did you mean it? That I am safe here?" Vincent crossed back to her, and he took both her hands in his. His hands were calloused from work, warm and strong, and she felt the promise in his grip even before he spoke. "You are safe with me always," he said, looking directly into her eyes. "I swear it on my parents' memory, on this land they built, on everything I hold sacred. Whatever brought you here, whatever you are running from or running toward, you have sanctuary in this house. No one will hurt you while I draw breath." The intensity of his words, the absolute conviction in his voice took her breath away. She believed him, she realized. This man she had known for less than 2 hours, she believed him completely. "Thank you," she whispered. "That means more than you know." He squeezed her hands gently and then released them. "Rest, Olivia. Everything else can wait." The use of her first name sent a little thrill through her. After he left, she washed her face and hands in the warm water, changed into a simpler dress, and lay down on the bed. She had not intended to sleep, but exhaustion claimed her within minutes. When she woke, the light outside had shifted to late afternoon gold, and the smell of cooking food drifted up the stairs. She descended to find Vincent at the stove, stirring a large pot. He had changed his shirt and washed, his dark hair still slightly damp. "Good, you are awake," he said. "I hope you are hungry." They ate at the simple wooden table, and Olivia was surprised by how comfortable the silence between them was. The stew was, as he had promised, basic but filling, with chunks of beef and vegetables in a rich broth. "Tell me about Philadelphia," Vincent said eventually. "What was your life like there?" So Olivia told him, carefully at first and then with increasing ease, about her childhood in a modest but happy home. Her father's work as a clerk, her mother's skill with a needle. She told him about the fever that had taken both parents within a week of each other, leaving her and her sister orphaned. How her sister had married quickly, more for security than love, and how Olivia had tried to make herself useful, but always felt like an outsider in their home. "I do not think my brother-in-law was cruel," she said carefully, "just overburdened. They had 3 children already, and I was another mouth to feed. When I saw your advertisement, it felt like a door opening, a chance to have something of my own." "And now that you are here," Vincent asked, "how do you feel?" Olivia considered the question seriously. Terrified, she admitted, but also hopeful. Is that strange? Not at all, he said, a warmth in his voice. I felt the same way when I posted that advertisement, terrified it was a foolish idea, hopeful someone might actually answer. How many responses did you get? She asked, curious. 3, he said. One woman wanted to know how much money I had before agreeing to anything. Another wrote in such a flowery, elaborate style I could barely understand her meaning. And then there was your letter. My letter was very plain, Olivia said, embarrassed. I am not good with fancy words. Your letter was honest, Vincent corrected. You told me about yourself without pretense. You asked sensible questions about the ranch, the weather, what would be expected of you. You seemed like a real person, not someone playing a role. That mattered to me. The conversation continued through the meal and the cleanup afterward. Vincent washed while Olivia dried, and they fell into an easy rhythm that felt surprisingly natural. He told her about the ranch, the cattle operation, the challenges of drought and market prices. He spoke about his parents, his voice growing soft with memory, about how his mother had loved this land despite its harshness, how his father had built everything from nothing through sheer determination. They would have liked you, he said suddenly. My mother especially. She always said the West needed women with spine, not delicate flowers who would wilt in the heat. I wilted today, Olivia reminded him with a rueful smile. You fainted from exhaustion and tight clothing after weeks of travel, Vincent countered. That is different from lacking spine. You came here, did you not? You took a risk most people would never dare. That takes spine. Over the next several days, they settled into a routine that allowed them to grow comfortable with each other. Vincent showed her around the ranch, introduced her to the handful of men who worked there. Miguel's wife, Rosa, came by on the third day, a plump, cheerful woman who immediately took Olivia under her wing. You need to learn to ride, Rosa declared, looking at Olivia's impractical city dresses. And you need clothes that will not get you killed on a ranch. Come, I have some things that will fit you. Rosa produced several practical skirts and blouses, teaching Olivia how to move in them, how to tie her hair back properly so it would not catch on things. She also began teaching her about ranch life, the rhythms of it, the dangers and the joys. Vincent proved to be a patient teacher when it came to horses. He started her on a gentle mare named Daisy, leading her around the corral until she felt comfortable with the animal's movements. Talk to her, he instructed. Horses can sense fear, but they can also sense kindness. Let her know you are a friend. Olivia stroked Daisy's neck, murmuring soft words, and was rewarded with a gentle nuzzle. Gradually, over multiple sessions, she learned to ride, first in the corral and then on short trips around the ranch. The freedom of it surprised her. The feeling of moving faster than her own legs could carry her. The wind in her face and the vast California landscape spreading out before her. In the evenings, she and Vincent would sit on the porch, watching the sun paint the western sky in shades of gold and crimson. They talked about everything and nothing. Books they had read, foods they liked, memories from childhood. Vincent had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard, making her laugh when she least expected it. And she discovered she could make him smile, really smile, when she shared stories of her mishaps learning ranch skills. I cannot believe you tried to milk a cow from the wrong side, he said one evening, his shoulders shaking with laughter. No one told me there was a right side, Olivia protested, but she was laughing too. The poor thing looked at me like I had lost my mind. You probably scared her half to death, Vincent said, wiping his eyes. Did Rosa set you straight? Eventually, after she stopped laughing long enough to speak, Olivia said. I swear I heard Miguel chuckling about it all the way from the barn. As the days turned into a week, Olivia realized she was falling for this man. It was not the dramatic, overwhelming passion described in novels, but something quieter and perhaps more real. It was in the way he always made sure she had enough to eat before filling his own plate. The way he listened when she spoke, really listened as though her words mattered. The way he never made her feel foolish for not knowing things, only patient in teaching her. She caught him watching her sometimes when he thought she was not looking, and the expression on his face made her heart flutter. There was desire there, yes, but also tenderness, protectiveness, something that looked almost like wonder. One evening, about 10 days after her arrival, they were sitting on the porch as usual when Vincent cleared his throat. "I was thinking," he said carefully, "if you are comfortable with the idea, we could speak to the Reverend this Sunday about performing the marriage ceremony." Olivia's heart began to race, but not with fear this time, with anticipation. "I would like that," she said softly. Vincent turned to look at her, hope lighting his features. "Truly, you are not just saying that because you feel obligated." "I am saying it because I want to," Olivia said, meeting his eyes. "These past days, getting to know you, seeing your life here, I have realized this could be a real marriage. Not just an arrangement, but something true." He reached over and took her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. "I had hoped you might feel that way. I find myself thinking about you constantly, how you laugh when you are surprised, how you bite your lower lip when you are concentrating, how brave you are even when you are scared." "I am scared now," she admitted, "but in a good way, the way you are scared before something wonderful." Vincent lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "I will do everything in my power to make you happy, Olivia Palmer." "That is my promise to you. I believe you," she said, "and I promise to do the same for you." Sunday arrived with brilliant sunshine and a slight breeze that kept the heat from being oppressive. Olivia wore the best dress she owned, a simple blue cotton that Rosa had helped her press. Vincent had put on his cleanest shirt and even shaved carefully, and Olivia thought he looked impossibly handsome. They drove into town together, and Olivia was surprised to see that word had spread. Sarah from the general store was there, beaming with pleasure. Miguel and Rosa came, along with several of the ranch hands. Even a few townspeople she had not met yet had gathered at the small church. The Reverend James Hartley was an older man with kind eyes and a voice that carried authority tempered with compassion. The ceremony was simple and brief, but when Vincent slipped a plain gold band onto her finger and spoke his vows in a voice that trembled slightly with emotion, Olivia felt the weight and wonder of what they were doing. "I, Vincent Keller, take you, Olivia Palmer, to be my lawfully wedded wife. I promise to honor you, protect you, and cherish you for all the days of my life." When it was her turn, Olivia's voice was steady despite her racing heart. "I, Olivia Palmer, take you, Vincent Keller, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to honor you, support you, and love you for all the days of my life. By the power vested in me by the state of California, I now pronounce you husband and wife," Reverend Hartley said. "Vincent, you may kiss your bride." Vincent cupped her face gently in his work-roughened hands and kissed her with a tenderness that made her eyes sting with tears. It was her first real kiss, and it was perfect, gentle but with an underlying promise of passion to come. The small gathering cheered, and Sarah insisted on hosting a celebratory meal at her home behind the general store. It was nothing elaborate, just good food and friendly company, but Olivia felt embraced by this community in a way she never had in Philadelphia. These people might be rough around the edges, hardened by frontier life, but their kindness was genuine. As the sun began to set, Vincent helped her back into the wagon. Ready to go home, Mrs. Keller. The name sent a thrill through her. Mrs. Keller. She was someone's wife now, no longer alone in the world. Ready, she said. The drive back to the ranch felt different from that first journey. Then she had been a stranger traveling to an unknown fate. Now, she was returning home with her husband, and that word felt right in a way few things ever had when they arrived. Vincent helped her down from the wagon and then, without warning, swept her up into his arms. She gasped in surprise, clutching at his shoulders. "I am carrying my bride over the threshold," he said, a smile playing at his lips. "It is tradition." He carried her into the house and set her down gently in the main room. The playfulness faded from his expression, replaced by something more serious, more intense. "Olivia," he said softly, "I know this is all very new, and I do not want to rush you into anything you are not ready for. If you need time—" She silenced him by placing her fingers against his lips. "I am ready," she said. "I want to be your wife in every sense of the word." Vincent's eyes darkened, and he kissed her again, less gently this time, with a passion that made her knees weak. He lifted her again, carrying her up the stairs to what was now their bedroom. The room had been transformed while they were in town. Fresh linens on the bed, wildflowers in a vase by the window, candles ready to be lit. "Rosa," Vincent explained, seeing her notice. "She insisted on preparing the room properly for our wedding night." Olivia felt a flush rise to her cheeks, but it was anticipation rather than embarrassment. Vincent lit the candles, then turned to her, his expression tender. "I have never done this before," he admitted. "I want to make it good for you." "I have never done this either," Olivia said, touched by his vulnerability. "We will figure it out together." They undressed each other slowly, shyly at first and then with increasing confidence. Vincent's hands trembled slightly as he unfastened the buttons of her dress, and she found that endearing. This strong man made nervous by touching her. When they finally came together in the candlelight, it was awkward and sweet and wonderful all at once. There was some pain for Olivia, but Vincent was so gentle, so attentive to her responses, that pleasure soon overwhelmed discomfort. Afterward, they lay tangled in the sheets, Olivia's head on Vincent's chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. His hand stroked her hair with a tenderness that made her throat tight with emotion. "I love you," he said into the darkness. "I know it is too soon. I know we barely know each other, but I love you, Olivia. I think I started falling for you the moment I caught you when you fainted, when I saw the fear and courage warring in your eyes." Tears slipped down Olivia's cheeks, but they were happy tears. "I love you too," she whispered. "I was so afraid when I came here, afraid I would never fit in, afraid you would regret choosing me. But instead I found home. I found you." Vincent tightened his arms around her. "You will always be safe with me," he said, echoing the promise he had made that first day. Always. The weeks that followed their wedding were among the happiest of Olivia's life. She threw herself into learning everything she could about ranch life, determined to be a true partner to Vincent rather than a burden. Rosa continued her patient teaching, showing Olivia how to preserve food for the winter, how to mend the kind of damage ranch work inflicted on clothing, how to treat minor injuries and illnesses with the limited medical supplies available. Vincent taught her about the cattle business, explaining how he decided when to buy and sell, how he judged the health of the herd, how he managed the finances. To her surprise, Olivia discovered she had a head for numbers, able to spot patterns in his record books that he had missed. "You should have been a bookkeeper," Vincent said one evening, watching her work through his accounts. "You are better at this than I am." "I like it," Olivia admitted. "There is something satisfying about making the numbers line up properly." "Then it is your job now," Vincent declared. "I hate bookkeeping. Always have. You would be doing me a favor." So Olivia took over managing the ranch's financial records, and she discovered she had a talent for it. She found ways to economize without sacrificing quality, identified market trends that helped Vincent make better selling decisions, even suggested diversifying into horse breeding, which proved lucrative. But it was not all work. Vincent made sure they had time for each other, time to ride out into the beautiful California landscape, to watch sunsets from their favorite spot on a hill overlooking the valley, to lie in each other's arms and talk until the candles burned low. One evening, about 2 months after their wedding, Vincent came home with an excited expression. "I have a surprise for you," he said. He led her out to the barn, where a beautiful piano sat incongruously among the hay bales and horse tack. Olivia gasped. "Vincent, where did you? I remembered you mentioned once that your mother taught you to play," he said, looking pleased with her reaction. "I found this in Sacramento. A family was selling it because they were moving somewhere the wagon could not accommodate it. I thought we could put it in the house in that corner by the window. If you want it, that is." Olivia threw her arms around him, tears streaming down her face. "I want it. Oh, Vincent, this is the most thoughtful gift anyone has ever given me." They moved the piano into the house with Miguel's help, and that evening, Olivia played for the first time in years. Her fingers were rusty at first, stumbling over scales she had once known by heart, but gradually, the music came back. She played simple folk songs, hymns, a few classical pieces her mother had loved. Vincent sat and listened, his expression one of pure contentment. "Play something happy," he requested. So she played a lively reel, and to her delight, Vincent stood and held out his hand. "Dance with me." "There is no room," she protested, laughing. "Then we will make room." They pushed aside furniture and danced in the lamplight, Vincent surprisingly graceful for such a large man. He spun her until she was dizzy and breathless with laughter, and when the song ended, he pulled her close and kissed her deeply. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm over the following months. The ranch prospered under their joint management. Vincent's knowledge of cattle and land, combined with Olivia's financial acumen, proving to be a formidable partnership. They hired 2 more hands to help with the expanding operation, young men who reminded Olivia of how lost she had felt when she first arrived, and she made sure they felt welcomed and valued. Winter came, milder than the Pennsylvania winters Olivia remembered, but still cold enough to require fires in the evenings and extra blankets on the bed. She and Vincent would sit close to the fire, reading or talking, her feet in his lap while he rubbed them absently. These were the moments she treasured most, the quiet intimacy of shared silence, of being so comfortable with another person that words were not always necessary. It was in early spring, nearly a year after her arrival, that Olivia began to suspect she might be pregnant. She missed her monthly courses, felt nauseous in the mornings, found herself inexplicably tired despite getting plenty of sleep. She confided in Rosa, who confirmed her suspicions with knowing eyes. "You are glowing," Rosa said, hugging her. "Vincent will be thrilled." Olivia was nervous about telling him, unsure why. They had certainly never taken precautions against pregnancy, but somehow the reality of it felt monumental. That evening, after supper, she took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "Vincent," she said softly, "we are going to have a baby." His eyes widened, and for a moment he just stared at her. Then his face split into the widest smile she had ever seen. He let out a whoop of joy and lifted her off her feet, spinning her around. "We are having a baby," he shouted. "Olivia, we are having a baby." He set her down carefully, suddenly worried. "Are you all right? Do you need to sit down? Should you be on your feet? What do you need?" She laughed at his immediate transformation into a protective, hovering husband. "I am fine. Rosa says everything seems normal. The baby should arrive in the fall." Vincent cupped her face in his hands, his eyes suspiciously bright. "You have made me the happiest man alive," he said. "First you agreed to marry me, and now this. I do not deserve such blessings." "We deserve each other," Olivia corrected. "And we will deserve this child. We will give him or her all the love and security we both wished for." The pregnancy progressed smoothly, though Olivia found the summer heat particularly trying. Vincent became even more attentive, if that was possible, constantly making sure she was comfortable, insisting she rest more, take on fewer physical tasks. She appreciated his care but also had to remind him occasionally that she was pregnant, not made of glass. "I can still help with the bookkeeping," she said one afternoon when he suggested she should spend the day resting. "My brain is not pregnant, just my body." "I worry," he admitted. "My mother nearly died when she had me. I was a difficult birth, and she could never have more children after." "The thought of something happening to you," his voice broke. Olivia took his hands. "I am healthy and strong. Rosa has delivered dozens of babies and she says everything looks good. I will be fine. We will be fine." In September, as the heat finally began to break, Olivia went into labor. Rosa came immediately, taking charge with calm efficiency that Olivia found enormously reassuring. Vincent was less calm, pacing outside the bedroom door until Rosa finally told him he could either come in and be helpful or go work off his anxiety in the barn. He chose to stay, holding Olivia's hand through the contractions, wiping her forehead with cool cloths, murmuring encouragement even when she snapped at him in pain. The labor was long and exhausting, but when the baby finally arrived in the early hours of the morning, everything else faded away. Rosa placed a red-faced, wailing infant in Olivia's arms and she stared down at the tiny face in wonder. "A boy," Rosa announced, beaming. "A healthy, strong boy." Vincent's hands shook as he reached out to touch his son's downy head. "He is perfect," he whispered. "Olivia, he is perfect." They named him Thomas, after Vincent's father, and he was indeed perfect. Dark-haired like his father, with eyes that would eventually turn brown like both his parents. He was a good baby, healthy and growing strong, and Vincent proved to be a devoted father, rising in the night to bring Thomas to Olivia for feeding, changing diapers without complaint, spending hours just holding his son and staring at him in amazement. "I never knew I could love someone so much," he said one evening, watching Thomas sleep in his cradle. "Except for you, of course." "Of course," Olivia echoed with a smile. Life with a baby was exhausting but joyful. The ranch continued to prosper, and they hired additional help, so Vincent could spend more time with his family. On Thomas's first birthday, they threw a party that brought together everyone who had become important in their lives. Sarah from the general store, Miguel and Rosa, the ranch hands, several families from town who had become friends. "Look at what you built," Sarah said to Olivia, watching the celebration. "Not just a home, but a family, a community. You should be proud." "I am," Olivia said. "Though I could not have done any of it without Vincent. We built this together." When Thomas was 2, Olivia found herself pregnant again. This time, she felt more confident, less anxious about the process. The baby, a girl they named Sarah after their friend from the general store, arrived in the spring with less drama than her brother. She had Olivia's lighter coloring and Vincent's strong features, and her father was instantly wrapped around her tiny fingers. "I am going to have to beat boys away with a stick when she gets older," Vincent said, cradling his daughter. "She is going to be a heartbreaker." "She is 3 days old," Olivia reminded him, but she was smiling. The years flowed by in a current of work, love, and family. Thomas grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved the ranch and followed his father everywhere. Sarah was more adventurous, fearless in a way that gave both her parents regular heart attacks. Two more children followed, another boy they named Joseph, and finally another girl, Margaret. The ranch expanded significantly over the years, becoming one of the most successful operations in the region. Vincent's reputation for fair dealing and quality livestock spread, and they found themselves hosting buyers from as far away as San Francisco. Olivia managed not just the books, but also increasingly the social aspects of the business, hosting dinners and gatherings that cemented relationships and opened new opportunities. But despite the success and the busy household, Vincent and Olivia always made time for each other. They still rode out together when they could, watched sunsets from the porch, talked late into the night. The passion between them had matured but never faded, deepening into something richer and more complex than the early days of their marriage. On their 10th anniversary, Vincent presented Olivia with a beautiful locket containing tiny photographs of their 4 children. "To the woman who took a chance on a lonely rancher," he said, fastening it around her neck. "You have given me everything I never dared to dream of." "We gave each other everything," Olivia corrected, as she always did when he tried to give her all the credit. "Equal partners, remember? Equal partners," he agreed, kissing her. As the children grew, they each developed their own personalities and dreams. Thomas wanted to expand into horse breeding, showing a natural talent with the animals that reminded Olivia of his father. Sarah surprised everyone by developing a passion for books and learning, announcing at age 12 that she wanted to be a teacher. Joseph was mechanical, always taking things apart to see how they worked, talking about one day building machines to make ranch work easier. And little Margaret, still only 6, seemed to have inherited her mother's musical talent, spending hours at the piano that Vincent had bought all those years ago. "We have raised some remarkable children," Olivia said one evening, watching them play together in the yard. "We have," Vincent agreed. "Though I take no credit. You are the one who has shaped them, taught them to be kind and curious and brave." "I learned bravery from you," Olivia said, leaning against his shoulder. "You taught me that taking risks can lead to beautiful things." Vincent wrapped his arm around her. "Do you ever regret it? Coming west, marrying a stranger, giving up the life you knew?" "Not for a single moment," Olivia said firmly. "That first day when I fainted from fear and you caught me, you promised I would always be safe with you. You have kept that promise every day since. This life, this family, this love, it is everything I never knew to hope for." "You gave me the same gift," Vincent said quietly. "Before you came, I was just existing, going through the motions. You made me live again. You made this house a home." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the California sky in familiar shades of gold and crimson. So much had changed since that terrifying, wonderful day when Olivia had stepped off the stagecoach in Calistoga. She had been so young, so scared, so uncertain of what the future held. Now, 20 years into their marriage, with 4 grown or growing children and a legacy built on love and partnership, Olivia could look back on that frightened girl with compassion and pride. She had been brave enough to take the leap, to trust a stranger's promise, to believe in the possibility of happiness. And that stranger had become her everything. Her partner, her lover, her best friend, the father of her children, the keeper of her heart. Thomas had married a local girl, sweet Emily Foster, and they had given Olivia and Vincent their first grandchild, a boy named Vincent Jr. Sarah had indeed become a teacher, running the school in Calistoga and making a difference in dozens of young lives. Joseph had taken his mechanical skills to Sacramento, working with a company that designed agricultural equipment, visiting home regularly with tales of innovation and progress. And Margaret, now 16, was preparing to attend a music conservatory in San Francisco, her talent having blossomed beyond anything a small town could contain. The ranch continued to thrive under Thomas's management, though Vincent still played an active role, unable to fully retire from the work he loved. Olivia had gradually handed over the bookkeeping to Emily, who proved to have the same knack for numbers, but she still oversaw the major decisions, her counsel valued by everyone. On a particularly beautiful spring morning, Olivia and Vincent rode out to their favorite spot on the hill overlooking the valley. They did this less often now, their bodies not quite as young as they once were, but the tradition remained important to them both. "Do you remember the first time we came here?" Vincent asked, helping her down from her horse. "You were so nervous you could barely enjoy the view." "I was terrified of falling off the horse," Olivia admitted, laughing. "I could not believe you expected me to ride up a hill when I had only been on a horse a few times." "You did beautifully, though," Vincent said, "just like you have done with everything this life has thrown at you." They sat on the blanket Vincent had spread, looking out over the land that had become so dear to them. The ranch stretched below, buildings and corrals organized with the efficiency of decades of refinement. Beyond it, the town of Calistoga had grown, more houses, more businesses, the church steeple visible above the trees. "I cannot imagine having lived any other life," Olivia said softly. "If I had stayed in Philadelphia, married some city clerk, lived a small, careful life, I would have missed all of this. The adventure, the challenge, the love." Vincent took her hand, his fingers automatically finding the familiar places, the touch as natural as breathing after so many years. "I thank God every day that you answered that advertisement, that you were brave enough to come west, to take a chance on an unknown rancher with more hope than sense." "You had plenty of sense," Olivia protested. "You built a successful ranch, survived on your own after losing your parents, created something lasting." "I created buildings and financial success," Vincent said. "You created a family. You took a lonely house and filled it with love and laughter and life. That is the real legacy, Olivia. Not the cattle or the land, but the family we built together." Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes. "We built it together," she insisted, as she always had. "I could not have done any of it without you. You gave me safety when I needed it most. You gave me purpose, partnership, passion. You gave me a reason to be brave." They sat in silence for a long while, hands clasped, watching the clouds drift across the California sky. So much history between them now, so many shared memories, joys and sorrows weathered together. They had buried friends, celebrated births, survived droughts and economic downturns, rejoiced in their children's successes and comforted them through their failures. Through it all, they had remained each other's constant, the unwavering center around which everything else revolved. "I love you," Vincent said, the words as fresh and true as the first time he had spoken them on their wedding night. "More now than ever, if that is possible." "It is possible," Olivia said, "because I feel the same way. Every year, every day, I find new reasons to love you. New depths to this gift you gave me when you promised I would always be safe with you." "Always," Vincent repeated, the old promise renewed. "For whatever time we have left, for whatever comes next, you are safe with me always." As the sun began its descent toward the western hills, they made their way back to the ranch, to the house that had become home, to the family that continued to grow and flourish. The children and grandchildren would gather soon for Sunday dinner, the long table filled with multiple generations, the walls echoing with conversation and laughter. But for now, in this golden moment, it was just Olivia and Vincent, two people who had taken a leap of faith decades ago and found in each other everything they had been searching for. The mail-order bride who had fainted from fear and the rancher who had caught her, who had promised her safety and delivered so much more. Their love story written in the land they had tended, the family they had raised, the life they had built together. It was a story that would continue beyond them, in Thomas and Emily's children, in Sarah's students, in Joseph's innovations, in Margaret's music. The legacy was not just in the successful ranch or the family name, but in the love they had created, the example they had set, the proof that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust a stranger's promise and believe in the possibility of home. And as they walked into their house together, Vincent's arm around Olivia's waist, her head resting on his shoulder, they carried with them the certainty that fear faced with courage leads to miracles, that strangers can become soulmates, and that promises kept with love can transform not just two lives, but generations to come. The evening meal was joyful and chaotic in the best possible way, with Vincent Jr. toddling between the adults, Sarah debating education policy with anyone who would listen, Joseph sketching designs on spare paper, and Margaret playing soft background music on the piano that had started it all. Emily and Thomas worked together to serve the food, their partnership echoing Vincent and Olivia's own, while the ranch hands who had become family over the years added their own voices to the conversation. As Olivia looked around the table at the faces she loved, at the family that had grown from one frightened woman stepping off a stagecoach and one lonely man willing to take a chance, she felt a peace so profound, it was almost painful in its intensity. This was what she had traveled across a continent to find, though she had not known it at the time. Not just a husband or a home, but a whole world of love and belonging. Vincent caught her eye across the table and smiled, that special smile reserved just for her, and she smiled back, a lifetime of understanding passing between them in that single glance. They had built something beautiful together, something that would endure long after they were gone, a testament to the power of courage, commitment, and love. That night, as they prepared for bed in the room they had shared for so many years, Vincent pulled Olivia into his arms and held her close. "Thank you," he whispered into her hair, "for saying yes, for staying, for building this life with me." "Thank you for catching me when I fell," Olivia whispered back, "and for never letting me fall again." They stood there in the quiet darkness, two people who had started as strangers and become one, their heartbeats synchronized, their breathing matched, their souls intertwined in a bond that neither time nor circumstance could break. Outside, the California night settled over the ranch, stars appearing one by one in the vast sky, the land resting before another day of work and life and love. And in the years that followed, through grandchildren and great-grandchildren, through the inevitable sorrows and joys that life brings, Vincent and Olivia remained what they had always been: partners, lovers, best friends, each other's safety and home. They grew old together with grace, their love not diminished by time but refined by it, distilled into something pure and unshakable. When Vincent passed peacefully in his sleep at the age of 76, surrounded by family, his last words were the promise he had kept for 50 years. "You are safe with me always." And Olivia, holding his hand as she had held it so many times before, whispered back, "Always." She followed him 2 years later, her heart simply deciding it had beaten long enough without its other half. The family gathered to lay her to rest beside Vincent on the hill overlooking the ranch. And as they stood together, multiple generations united in grief and love. They understood that what Olivia and Vincent had built went far beyond the land or the business. They had built a legacy of love, of courage, of promises kept and faith rewarded. They had shown that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with the bravest decisions, that fear faced with hope can transform into joy, and that two strangers meeting in a dusty frontier town can create a love story that echoes through generations. The ranch continued under Thomas's children, and then their children, each generation adding their own chapter to the story, while honoring the foundation laid by Vincent and Olivia. The piano remained in its place by the window, played by countless descendants, its keys remembering the touch of the woman who had traveled so far to find home. And on quiet evenings, when the California sun painted the sky gold and crimson, family members would sometimes gather on the porch and share stories of the mail-order bride who had fainted from fear and the rancher who had caught her, who had promised she would always be safe, and who had spent every day of his life making good on that promise. It was a love story worthy of remembering, worthy of retelling, worthy of the beautiful, complicated, wonderful life it had created. And somewhere, in whatever comes after, Vincent and Olivia were together still, building new adventures in new lands, their love as constant and true as it had ever been, eternal and unbreakable, a testament to the power of taking chances on love and the miracles that can grow from promises kept with devotion and faith.